Let's start with the following and followers pages. You can take a look at the mockups for those. So that's this here and this here. You can see they're really similar, and in fact we'll define an underlying view for both of them. It won't actually be a partial though, as we'll see. But first we'll do a little access control. You certainly need to be logged in to see these pages. So let's write some tests. These are controller test. Users controller, I should say. So we can do this and say get following with the ID at user, and then we should be redirected to the root URL. Just copy this here. Actually, that's not true. We should be redirected to the login URL, right? And then same thing for followers. Oops, I doubled that up, didn't I? Followers, when not logged in. Followers. It should be red. There are actually errors here because the followers and following action don't exist. We're going to need this though, we might as well put them in. So let's go to the users controller, here they are. We're going to put these right at the end. Now we're missing the template. We are going to define that template in a moment, but all we need to do to get these tests to pass is to add following and followers to the list of actions protected by the logged in user before filter. So we can do this. Now we should be green. All right. And now because these two pages are almost identical, we're actually going to make a non-partial for them and then render that template. So it's going to be called show follow. It's going to be the same thing here. And that template will take in a title. We'll say at title, in this case, is following. And down here will be followers. And here we'll have a user from the params. It's actually going to be the same user in here. We could put this in a before filter. Doesn't really seem like it's worth the effort here. And then there are going to be a bunch of users here on the side, right here. So this is going to be on the following page. These are going to be the users that are being followed, and here it'll be the followers. So let's put those in instance variables called at users. It's going to be at user dot following. And you can see we've got pagination links here, so we're going to paginate these. As usual, this will just magically work. We've got this complicated association, but the pagination will work through the association automatically. This is the same thing, except instead of following, it's followers. And these are all the variables we need, and we just need to make the template. Let's do that here. Oops, I need to give it the extension. The title will be given by this at title. So we can just do this here. As usual, let's provide title and then at title. And then there's just a bunch of structures, so I'll type it in pretty quickly. It's not that important, the details here. Got the user info. If you want, you can actually define some partials for these. At this stage, it's probably not that important, though. Surprisingly hard to get the exact partials you might want. If there are any users, we're going to render these here, the side. I'm going to link to each user. We're going to make them small, these gravatars. It's just going to be the gravatar. That's what these represent here. These little images on the side. So let's do link to gravatar for user size 30. And a link to the user path of user. See what that looks like. Save this, save this. And we can go to here. Let's look at it, give us the stats partial. All right, syntax error. It's good to look at this early on. We're missing an end somewhere. Oh, it's the if at users.any right here. That's after the div. We want to do this here. I usually put the end in right away, and this is why. All right, that's looking good. So this is pretty close to this mockup right here. All we need is the stuff in the middle here. So let's do that. I learned my lesson there. And here we're reusing the underscore user partial. Remember, we did render at users before. This iterates through the collection automatically because each of these is of class user. Rails looks for an underscore user partial. And so this should just work. Let's take a look. All right. Only one thing left, which is pagination. Do that. And because these are users and we're in the user's controller, we can just do will paginate without any argument. All right, it's working. You can see /1/following page 2. And of course, we can look at the followers as well. Oh, it's the same URL though. Look at that. It's a bug. Let's fix that. That's in the stats partial. It's over here. You probably noticed that, but I missed it. This should be followers user path. Ah, there we go. /user/1/followers. And of course, all of these are linked too. You can click on one of those. I almost clicked on this. It doesn't work yet though. Following and followers are both working. Great. And you can see the delete links here, and that's because I'm an admin, or I'm logged in as an admin. It looks like there's some space that should be put in here. Micropost 50. Let's put that in. Yeah, I just need a space. Great. Check the profile link. Hope that's not working either. Did I just forget that? Yeah, I did. There it is. It can either be current user or @user. It actually doesn't matter. But we set it up here, right? This is always... Actually, no, it does matter, because we can look at the profiles of other people. We can look at the followers of other people. So we could go here, click on this. Right, so we definitely want it to be @user and not current user. So view my profile. This is now not my profile, the logged in user, but rather the profile of this particular user. There's one more thing, which is that this here, this space here is not quite right. So let's fix that. But I figured this out. It's actually an error in the book, which has now been fixed. It's in the CSS here, or that's the hint. It gives us the hint of what's going on. There's a rule here, .users.follow. So this is for something that has class users, which we get on things like this. Right? This has class users, this list. But there's this extra padding on the left here. So for something of class follow as well, we have padding 0. The problem is that on the show follow template, we just have class equals users. So it should be class users and follow. So if we do this, go back here, this should now work. Right. Now that we've got this working, let's write a couple of short tests to verify the behavior. We'll generate an integration test for following. So we called following test. Let's take a look at it. There it is, and let's do a little setup. What I want is an @user as usual. And let's log in as that user. And then let's test the following page and the followers page. In fact, they'll be really similar. We can probably just copy this one. So let's get following user path of @user. And let's verify that the following count appears on the page and that links to all of the users being followed appear as well. So remember what we've been doing with something like a count. Instead of specifying the HTML tag using assert select, we've been doing assert match. That count.toS to make a string, and then that should be somewhere on the body. Again, response.body is the whole HTML, although in this case it actually is inside the body tag. And then for each of the users being followed, so at user.following.each, assert select should be an anchor tag with href equal to the users of the user path of user. Remember, inside the test in this context, we can't actually just use user by itself. Let's save that and see what happens. So if we get rid of this here, see that it doesn't quite work. Oh, it did work. So I don't think it does work in general. In fact, in order to avoid a spurious passing like this, we should probably do something like this. So what happened here is we haven't set up the fixtures to have user following. Yeah, so there's a failure here. I'm going to leave this in because I think it's going to fail once we set up the associations. So let's set up the fixtures to actually make these tests do something useful. Remember, with the microposts, we saw that we could build the association like this. So here's a micropost with the key orange, and we can just say user Michael like that. We're going to do the same thing inside the relationships YAML file. We don't really care what the names of these things are, so let's just call them 1 through 4. So 1 will be an association between Michael, who will be the follower. Michael will be following Lana. So followed is Lana. And let's do the second one. Let's say Michael will follow Mallory. Let's just review who these are. So here's Lana and Mallory. So 2 will be, I can just copy this. I think I did copy it actually. Yeah. Followed will be Mallory. And then 3, let's say that Lana is following Michael. I can just do this here. And say that Archer is also following Michael. Save this, and now go back to the test. Here it is. Right, so now instead of having a failure, we have an error, and that's because of this thing here that I mentioned before. This should be user path of user. Doesn't work in the test. But now we should be green. All right. Let's test the followers page in the same way. We can just copy this thing. Or cut it. That'll work. Just paste twice. And now we want to get followers user path. Assert that this is not empty. Assert that the followers count appears. And then at user.followers. Oops. Right. I have test following page. It should be test followers page. All right, now we're green. Rerun the full test suite. Great, now we're done with the following and followers pages.